How's the leg?
Leg is 10 pins of metal and one metal plate down the front. It's the bone is healed. It's just the muscle damage, the ligaments. Hopefully, I'll be able to be running around, so to speak, maybe in a month or two. Oh, it's optimistic.
You're not tempted to get a black one?
I have a black one.
Right, okay.
I prefer to go with this one, so it's obvious.
Can I ask, first off then, is it true that all this that we see in front of us, this rock god, started out playing triangle in the high school band?
Absolutely true. It's funny that, again, you asked me these strange coincidences. I like to get things off of Amazon Prime. It's my guilty pleasure. Sometimes I get a little too drunk and I buy odd things, but I just bought a triangle.
Were you any good at triangle?
I don't really think you can be bad at triangle. It's not an instrument you can too easy.
I was just trying to work out whether or not like all of this happened because your triangle career didn't take off well enough.
Well, I did move on to snare drum, but I played traditional jazz style like that for a while. I got pretty good at it, but I realized that you put a microphone in front of anybody and then it makes them handsome automatically. Drummers, not so much.
And that was the main impetus?
Yeah.
So triangle was your gateway instrument?
It was sort of the barometer of, I think there's a whole mathematics to rock and roll that I came up with in my brain as a kid, because I would go to concerts to meet girls when I was a teenager. And girls would go to concerts because they wanted to have sex with the band. So then, now I have to figure out how the algebra on that one, because I'm in the band. And so I don't go to concerts anymore, except my own.
It seems to have worked out quite well for you.
It's not working out bad.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
So here we are, new album out.
Yes.
Reviewer after reviewer are giving it a pretty good write-up.
Not too bad.
Do you care about that now after, more than 2 decades in the industry? Or do you still get a little bit of, what are they going to make of it?
If it was bad reviews, I would say I didn't care about it. But no, I really like to base my impressions off of my friends or people around me when we're making it. I enjoyed making it. It was a tough year for me. I lost my father. A lot of things happened, but I just channeled all that into making the album. Didn't really focus on it. I don't think it's a really dark album in that sense. It's not a mournful album. It's a bit of a romantic record. I think so. It lets the listener, both sonically and rhythmically, put themselves in the story, even if you don't speak English. Then when you read the lyrics, I think that it lets you end the story the way you want it to.
I was going to ask, when you go now to write a new album, do you have in your head, right, this is how it's going to sound, this is what we're going to do with it? Or is it you get there and whatever comes out, comes out? Because it's a very different sound to Pale Emperor.
Well, I work with the same person, Tyler Bates, and he scores films for a living, I guess. I don't know which is for a living, 'cause he said that he enjoyed, it was a vacation for him to work with me from his other job. So I've always wanted to tell a story with songs. So what better person than someone who is able to score around my words? But we sit about this far away from each other. He has his guitar and his amp pushed away, and I have a microphone just like this over my head. And we write the song at the same time. Sometimes he'll see my words on my music stand and base it off of that, but I don't go in a vocal booth or anything like that. That's why it has a raw sound to it, because the guitar noise is going through my microphone. I did play all the tambourine, though, I have to say. No triangle, but the tambourine's the new triangle for me.
And does it take them one song at a time? Because if you listen to the album the whole way through, it does feel like there's an ebb and a flow that it's meant to be listened to all in one go, all in sequence.
It was the sequence was really difficult at first because not all of the songs were completed as musical pieces. There was ideas of words that were all written out. And the final song that I recorded was called Saturnalia, and it was just after the Saturn had orbited around the Earth for the first time since, I think, Salvador Dali died. And that week, Dali's body was exhumed from the Earth. For some woman said that she had some sort of, DNA relation. And when I finished the song, I went and saw my father, and he passed away. So it was a strange cycle, and I just think everything happens in synchronicity. Each song has a bit of a story to it, and each one builds the story into an ending that sort of. Leaving it with a song called "Threats of Romance." It does imply that there is some romance in there, but I don't like questions in songs. I don't like when people ask questions and someone said, well, isn't Kill for Me the single? Question, will you kill for me? I said, no, that's an ultimatum. Or, this is quite a difference. It's more like a proposal than a question. Not asking for an answer as much as I'm asking for a reaction.
The question I had when I was listening to Saturnalia was there was like an undercurrent to the whole album. I got to Saturnalia and it was like, I can't work out what it was. And then I got to Saturnalia and it was Joy Division.
Oh,
it really sounded.
It had a bit of Joy Division in there. That's good. I take that as a compliment.
It was great. I loved it. Like, I think that's probably my favorite track on the
Thank you. It's my favorite one too. But I was listening to Joy Division, and I think when I sat down to make this record with Tyler, we both said, what's the first song that you used to play in high school to get laid? And we both said, The Cure, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. And then we just thought that we would try to channel the music that we grew up listening to, not try to emulate it, but just the spirit of it all, the darkness of it. That song, Saturnalia, has a very disruptive binaural audio in it. The whole record does. If you listen to it in headphones, it will affect your brain chemistry. I started reading about this. There's actual bunch of people in America trying to protest this new. There's some different websites where you can download audio that creates the same chemical reaction in your brain as drugs. And the word that kids are going to get addicted to audio drugs. But some of those are true. Some of those frequencies do have an effect on your brain. They make you feel happy or sad. And
so is this record an audio drug?
It is. It's alchemical, and it's binaural, and it is it's magic in some way.
But there are definitely elements in it where it feels like you're still being deliberately provocative. Like you go through the whole album and then you get to Jesus Crisis. That feels like a really provocative song, like deliberately provocative. Yeah,
that's deliberate. Well, I consider that song to be my resume, more so. This is the way it starts out. I write songs to fight and to fuck too. Could be taken just as a cheeky comment, yeah, I guess you would say, but it's not really meant to be about sex. That's the thing. It's meant to be whatever you want it to be, but when you're talking about the title, Jesus Crisis, I think the most ironic part is that the girls that sing the chant in the center of the song are Tyler's daughters, and they go to a Jewish school. So it has a real irony to it in that sense. But that song was one where it was difficult to figure where to place that on the record, where it told the story, and it had to be told right when it was put there. It's not just rhythmically changes the mood, but it just before things get too dark, you have to make them sexy. I really treated it like a film. I think when making a record, this one in particular, you have to think about when you go to see a movie, you don't know what's going to happen next. And that's what I wanted each song to be a scene in a film. And what's going to happen next. And it builds to the middle of the record is where your favorite song, Saturnalia, that's the tension, when it rains in the film, and the complication, and then things go to the point where your favorite character either dies or survives. So that's sort of left to the listener.
How do you think the favorite character fares out of this record?
Well, for me, I think I'm, aside from, I consider this a serious injury, but just a mild setback for me. I feel so, not just in the way when you make something new, you feel proud of it. I feel this record's important so that America has something that is dangerous in a smarter way than politics. And rather than talking about politics, why not make art that makes people excited, puts things into the world, doesn't take things out of the world.
You know, when you first thrust onto the scene in the 90s, your music was the soundtrack to millions of disassociated teens and youths and whatnot. They're now in their 30s, maybe 40s, maybe some kids. What do you think of the USA that they've grown up into?
I have to have a drink for that one. Oh, I think it's not, things change, but things usually stay the same. It's a cycle. I remember growing up, I don't think anyone's ever really liked politicians in general. Now there's just more ways of saying it with the internet, and I think the internet even could be compared to bills that you post on walls, like wanted, dead or alive, or no Indians allowed, or whatever things like, or we hate you, or we want you for the U.S. Army, or any of these things like that you can look through historically. So I tend not to really read things off the internet, because if they're complimentary, it's just as false as if they're insulting, because it would be like Santa Claus or God having to hear all these voices at the same time, everyone's opinion. So I just like to use it as another part, an extension of, like this interview, extension of my art. I think it's all one big part of it, and I think artists obviously should run the world, but it's not an impossible concept. But I think most of the good ones were killed for trying to do that in the past. So,
just before the most recent election, you posted a video that was you standing over the corpse of a gentleman with a very prominent red tie.
Mm-hmm. And I released it on I released it on the morning of the election, when you could vote. And the reason I wanted to do that was I wanted to see what people would say if they would think it was that. It was their head, put that in their head. I didn't put it in their head. I created a scenario where it is a guy with a red tie, decapitated. I'm not even decapitating anyone, I'm just standing there with a knife. And I just thought it was interesting that, I didn't get arrested for having this corpse, because it looked really real. There was a car that pulled down the street and just casually drove right around it and parked at the end of the block. I think it might have been someone with a prostitute, I'm not really sure, but I thought it was the police. But my intention was as planned, but it was much more artful than the failed attempt that Kathy Griffith did with the same director, who would rip off his own thing. It was kind of odd. But
do you hope it would have got more of a effect?
Nope. This guy is exactly what I wanted. It was just my statement. I wasn't looking to have a big, massive explosion. I just didn't want to hear anyone continue to ask me, "Are you going to vote?" I said, "This is my statement here." And left it at that, and made it very clear that it wasn't about anybody in particular. It's my statement. And my statement is, you can figure out whatever you want from it.
Is it true that the first time you ever voted was 2008 for Barack Obama?
Yes, that's the one time I've only voted, yeah.
Why?
I thought it was, aside from despising the whole Bush idea, I just thought it was a revolutionary moment in America to have someone you'd never expect to be president become president. And I know the two things I voted for were Barack Obama and for gay marriage. Only because I was married once, and I wanted gay people to understand that they can suffer also if they get married. It's fair. It's like, you want to get married, I would not ask for you. I would not even ask for that.
And you weren't compelled to vote this time?
No.
Would you want to vote the next time? If Donald Trump is running again, would you want to vote either in protest or in hope of something else?
No. Chances are I probably may end up becoming a citizen of another country. Who knows? I never know. being friends with Johnny Depp, we're always, he lives sometimes in France and sometimes in America. So we're thinking about maybe running for office.
On a joint ticket, the pair of you?
Yeah.
Who's the president, who's the vice president?
I'm gonna go, I'll be the guy in charge of the bombs. I'm much more steady-handed than Johnny.
That's clearly what the rest of the world would think as well.
Maybe not. I don't know. He's a pirate, but I'm a rock singer. But he can be whatever he wants to be. I think we'll have to talk that out. I'm gonna have to have a summit with him. We'll decide. I think maybe me president, maybe him vice president. I want him to let him get a little bit more rest than me because he has to be so handsome.
You need the rest with the leg as well, though.
Yeah, but if my leg's fixed by then, you gotta balance it all out.
Yeah, true.
It takes a lot. I bet it just takes more out of him being so handsome. It must be exhausting.
Do you But when you started off, you really were this voice of this disassociated youth. Do you think that the youth now is as disaffected as they were when you were coming through?
Well, I was part of it. That's the thing. I was disassociated youth. And now I have a hard time relating to just time in general on a linear level. It just doesn't relate to me. I still feel trapped in my head the way I did when I started out. But I would never call myself more mature, wiser possibly, but still recklessly foolish at times. And I don't want to change that. There's no need to. It works for me.
It's easy to forget just how much controversy that was generated by you in the 90s, especially on this side of the Atlantic. But all that controversy was magnified tenfold when Columbine happened.
Yeah.
Because it was wrongly reported at the time that the two guys were Marilyn Manson.
I watched it live on TV, and I was watching it live, and they said there were 5 boys dressed in Marilyn Manson costumes, and then it was 3, and then it was 2. But I was watching it live. I remember the day. It was in Chicago, in a hotel room, just going, I know I'm going to get blamed for this, and I don't know why. Because I should see my face come up like was responsible when they weren't fans, anyways.
How was that for you?
At first, because of all of the bomb threats and death threats, every day I learned that bomb dogs and drug dogs are the same. So that's an inconvenience. I'm thinking about adopting a drug dog sniffer to look for bombs, not for drugs, I swear.
In the house, maybe.
Yeah, but I always revert to sarcasm when you ask me a serious question because it was a tough time where I just really had everything was going right. I just had it all ripped out from under me. So instead of crybaby about it, I refused to do any interviews about it. I came out with a statement. I had my shaved head and a gun and a rifle in my hand. It was my father's rifle from Vietnam. And I wrote an essay for Rolling Stone that Jan Wenner invited me to write. And I think that was the best way I could say something because obviously, from being in journalism that, anything you say, people will take little pieces out of. And me being a former journalist also, I also know how to construct sentences in the way that they can't be taken out of context. That's also probably why the CIA wanted to recruit me when I was a younger child. My father told me before he passed.
The CIA wanted to recruit you?
He said something along those lines. He said he'd try to protect me from them because I think that he was somehow involved in Vietnam with covert operations that I'm probably not even supposed to know about. So he never told me about it until he was, very ill at the end.
So on the passing things, he says the CIA tried to recruit you, and I tried to keep you away from it.
Yeah, for the most part, he said because of my ability to understand language and count the amount of things in a room, before you get a chance to. I guess it's some form of highly functioning autism if I were to be diagnosed, which I don't know if you can diagnose that, but sometimes I see things that I don't need to see, or remember things that I don't need to remember. I don't really know the words that you could want to describe it, but one thing I'm really bad at remembering is names for some reason. I forgot all your names, but I remember how many people were in the room. No, it's just, that's my one difficulty, because when I meet someone, I look into their eyes and I see something about them.
Going back to Columbine though, that was such it's a huge thing to go through. You clearly were at the centre of all this controversy, but you haven't shied away from that controversy ever since. Just a few weeks ago, you go out on stage and point what looks like an automatic rifle at a crowd in front of you.
Yeah. Well, I also had 2 large guns fall on me and break my leg that were stage props as well. So I guess, maybe it's the universe paying me back in reverse. I'm not sure. But I don't think that anyone felt that they were in danger, and there were police there, and the policeman had to offer me the gun. Obviously, it wasn't real. I don't think anyone thought it was real. Just like when Alice Cooper was beheaded on stage, no one thought that was real. And, so anything's with Bowie. I'm excited to play Wembley, because there's a famous picture I love of Bowie holding a earth on his shoulders at Wembley, and that makes me excited. So I had a strange dream about him the other day, that he was dressed like the video for Ashes to Ashes in the Pierrot outfit, the white French clown, and he was on roller skates, and he had a broken mirror, and he was talking to me about the song Cracked Actor. It's just a weird dream that I had driving in here, going underwater through the train.
What do you think of Ben?
I don't know, but yeah, I got to meet him once, and that was a great moment in my life.
I read one quote about you where you said, "I'm a rock star. I'm not a celebrity."
Mm.
And yet, your very name, Marilyn for Marilyn Monroe, Manson for Charles Manson. That was a choice of the most famous, notorious celebrities at the time of when you were born. Right. Your very being is about embracing celebrity, isn't it?
Well, it was a commentary on the creation of celebrity, and so then it does sort of wrap itself into a snake eating its own tail in a way. But that was the point. I mean, initially it was more of an experiment for me, just to see what people would think, because I didn't even have music when I created the band. I just wrote the article about a band that didn't exist, with music that didn't exist, and people seemed interested in it. And it's the same cycle of things. I find that you can tell people a lot of things and convince them of a lot of things if you say it in the right way and try to look good when you're saying it.
If you were starting the band now, would you go with the same name?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you mean today, yeah, it wouldn't. I think it was a strange phenomenon that people thought that I died when Charles Manson died.
Did you get a lot of that?
Yeah, there was a big, not from anyone that I know.
Yeah.
But I guess there was a big thing on Twitter and in the American press. And I think he would have been really pissed off, because he was all about wanting to be famous for what he was responsible for. I've never commented either way on it. I think that the comment was more about someone who is a convicted criminal, whether or not that was right or not. Not my judgment. I wasn't there. I wasn't even born then. I was born that year that happened. That you put them on the same level. Marilyn Monroe on the cover of Life magazine, Charles Manson on the cover of Life magazine. I think that that has not changed at all in American culture. I just think that, you know, paper has become television, and television has become the internet, and it all becomes just a bigger way of noise. And I think somehow, probably, the only cure for society is going to be going backwards to the 45 LP, which, you know, England is very famous for, you know, of course, with the Beatles. And
we'll take down YouTube, we'll take down the internet, we'll just rely on 45s.
well, no, not that. I just, I mean, that would be an interesting way to, I think there's just so much stuff there. It does provide art to have a level playing ground. So then you really got to show, really got to prove yourself. And that kind of goes back to like murder versus acting, or stupidity and, you know, jackass sort of events, and people doing, you know, really foolish things on television or on YouTube, you know, to film, versus someone writing a song that's supposed to create an emotional reaction.
But how did you feel about the passing of Charles Manson? So you went on stage a couple of nights after and sang Sick City.
Yeah, it wasn't a dedication. It was more of a just a reminder that he also was a musician in the beginning, and I liked the song. But in by no way was it me trying to say I'm either happy or sad. I'm just the only Manson left, except Shirley, but she doesn't count because she's a girl.
There are some people that would say that, you know, even doing that song, you know, a couple nights after his death, probably isn't the most appropriate thing in the world to do.
Well, would it not be appropriate, though?
Well, I suppose there are quite a few people who think that...
Well, I mean, that would be like saying that you can't listen to any Phil Spector records because he's, you know, in prison for his crimes, or Robert Blake or something like that. I'm not comparing those to them, but yeah, if you're saying, was I going to stir up the pot, it wasn't. I was surprised that people knew about the song. That was pretty much my intention, was to just play the song, because I had already released the song a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem like it was anything other than, well, this thing happened, now we move on. And I just wanted to put a musical thing to it, because that's what I do. You know, that's what I'm supposed to do.
You mentioned your father a little while ago. Just before Pale Emperor came out, I read an interview that you did, and you know, your mother had just passed away, and you said that you wanted your dad to be proud of this record.
Yeah.
And now he's just passed away. Just
Yeah.
this record comes out. Did he get to hear any of this record?
He didn't. That was my only regret. And I got to see him for about a half an hour. I think he was waiting for me. 'Cause I finished the last song on it. The next day, I got this tattoo on my hand, and I flew to Ohio because he had not really told me how ill he was. And I think that he just wanted to be with my mom, wherever that is, you know. And within a half an hour, he died from me seeing him. And I got to tell him I loved him and say goodbye to him, so that was very important to me. But I was sort of bonding over it with Lisa Marie Presley, because oddly enough, my mother was a huge Elvis fan. It was the reason I dyed my hair black. Even though I was born with black hair as a child, in my childhood photo, I have jet black hair. My hair was pretty much the color of yours if I didn't dye it. But she came over to visit me when I broke my ankle, and we were talking about that, and you know how it still affects you. I just miss my dad. The problem is I always wake up and think, oh, Dad, I gotta tell you this, and I'm thinking about texting him a message or something, or calling him, and then I remember that he's not here to call. So holidays aren't really my favorite anymore. Although I remember Christmas was my father's most hated holiday for some reason. I think his father, my grandfather, who was a mean old bastard, I guess, threw out the Christmas tree one Christmas, and so my dad never really liked Christmas very much. But you know, the apple doesn't always have to be so close to the tree.
What do you think he would have made this album?
I think he would have liked it. I think he would have liked it a lot.
He seems to get a real kick out of your career.
It does. It does have elements now that when I listen to it, it depends on who I listen to it with. Affects how I hear it, and I don't usually listen to my music a lot, but this record I have listened to a lot because of the timing of it and the Pale Emperor being a build-up to this record. That's what we even talked about together, Tyler Bates and I, that this would be the one that was important to music. And I intend on making it that way. I intend on doing interviews and doing things because I don't just believe in the music, just that simply. I just believe there needs to be some better things in life to do than talk about politics and other bullshit.
Because Hollywood has been rocked by this huge scandal of the allegations against Harvey Weinstein. And of course, one of the most prominent alleged victims is one of your ex-partners, Rose McGowan. And an interview recently, Dita Martesh, your ex-wife, said she had heard rumours about this. Were you surprised by it?
I'm not surprised by it. I didn't really know much about it when I was with her. I just think that I don't want it to turn the whole world's attention from the artistic element of Hollywood and movies and films to be ruined by this, because it takes away from, when there's serious allegations, and there are always allegations, of course, but it's when someone starts complaining about something that happened that seems a little bit not as serious as really sexual assault, because I think that's insulting to people that have been sexually assaulted. And it pisses me off that when someone says, oh, someone gave me an inappropriate gift or something, that's not the same as being harmed. And I'm a very vengeful person, so I'm very protective of loved ones, especially in relationships. But I never really, that wasn't part of our relationship in the past. And I just don't want to see this turn Hollywood into something that takes away from films being made. And that's not to disrespect the people that are saying these allegations. I just think that if you have something to say, you should say it to the police, not to the press, and handle it that way first and foremost. And that's what I would do. But the things that happened to me growing up as a kid is nothing that I'm going to talk about or complain about. I'm guilty as charged when it comes to writing a book and talking about my childhood, but I'm not trying to make it into a crazed thing where I can't turn on my phone every day without someone being accused of something. Now, maybe it's all men are bad, or all men can't do anything inappropriate. It makes you feel like you can't even say, I meet her and say, if I could look at her the wrong way, I'm going to be accused of something wrong. I think the world needs to balance itself out with what's the proper way of dealing with this type of situation. And I don't disagree with, when you're speaking about my ex-fiance, I don't disagree with how she's handling it. I just disagree with the entire snowball effect that's happened with it, that it could really ruin a lot of things it could ruin a lot of people's lives that don't need to be ruined.
Do you think she should handle it differently then?
No, I don't know. That's up to her. It's not really my business. If I was with her, it'd be my business. I'm not, so it's not my business. But I don't blame her for saying it.
A couple of lighter ones then to end on. Who did you make up?
I do.
All the time?
Yeah, there's one person I let do my makeup sometimes.
Who's that?
Just some girl.
Okay, one last one.
No, not just some girl. I'm just kidding. I met a makeup artist that's very talented, so I let her do my makeup on the videos.
if news isn't going to work out for me, and I'm going to launch myself as an international rock god,
Mm-hmm.
what name should I be looking to?
Shave your chest first.
Shave my chest first.
I don't know if it's hairy, but just...
But I'll take it anyway. So I shave my chest first, and then what name could I go for?
That's a tough one. What are your options? You got a list of
I don't know. I was hoping that this would be our thing now. We'd go through it. You probably think it through. You take me under your wing, and then before you know it,
You want me to do all the work? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and then I'm probably on tour with you now.
We could be like the new Wham, but you would be Andrew Ridgeley though.
I'd be fine with being Andrew Ridgeley.
All right.
You can't jump about the stage as much as Jordan Wyvie used to do, though.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, well we could be Milli Vanilli.
That's great.
I don't really know which one. Were they twins?
I don't know. You tell them apart.
Yeah, it's tough. Or
which is much like us. People probably couldn't tell us apart as well.
Yeah, no, I think we look exactly alike.
That's great.
When I walked in the room, I thought I was looking in a mirror. I think you should call yourself Marilyn Manson Jr.
I'll take it. Marilyn Manson, thank you very much.
All right, man. Thanks.